We know we still have one more new feature arriving in 2025 after Vanguards next month. Following the launch of the Panther Clipper this week, in this video we consider what that new feature might be and is it actually linked to the question that currently gets asked by the community more than any other. Ever since the arrival of planetary landings in Elite Dangerous in the Horizons period from 2015 onwards, the player base began asking "Space legs when?". The comment appeared multiple times in the chat window of every FDev livestream and was repeated in the comment section of YouTube videos, on Frontier's official forums and on social media whenever the game was publicly discussed. That question was answered in 2021 with the Odyssey expansion to the game, which is when we saw the ability to get out of our ships and walk around outside arrive. Now that Odyssey is bedded in, the next big question on the community's lips that we're seeing repeated in all the same spots is ship interiors when? The comment "I just want to walk around the interior of my ships" is something that we see repeated in the comments of just about every single video we make, regardless of the subject of the video. Here at the Burr Pit we've thought about this particular subject a lot, and in doing so we've tried to remain pragmatic and objective. Whilst I would personally like to see ship interiors added to the game, there are some important caveats to that desire. As an extreme example, the interior of a Panther Clipper is almost always either empty cavernous cargo holds or full cavernous cargo holds. I don't personally need to see those cargo holds to know that they exist, and without adding meaningful gameplay to those spaces they would largely serve no purpose. Whilst I appreciate completely that other games might attempt to bridge that void by physicalising the cargo's existence and turning the loading and stacking of boxes into gameplay, I just don't believe that that's the sort of gameplay that Frontier is keen on developing. And when you've had 10+ years of a menu driven interface that invisibly and instantaneously loads hundreds of tons of cargo, allowing you to get back into space in less than 30 seconds, I'm just not sure I want to drive a forklift truck instead. I'm also not convinced that Frontier would add the entire ship interior due to a number of factors, but primarily the cost of designing and producing that interior versus the likely return on that investment in terms of gameplay and the all important player engagement. And the Frontier way of doing things is a very important consideration when thinking about all of this. When it came to building starport interiors, FDev gave us the hangar bay and an elevator. Use the elevator and it essentially takes you to one place, a modest shopping mall style interior space filled with all the functionality that the starport currently offers. You can still see the rest of the starport out of the windows, but you'll never be able to enter those buildings or walk through those open spaces and domed forests etc, because seen through the lens of what Elite Dangerous is trying to be, and also the budget that it's using to try and achieve its goals, giving you a domed space forest filled with trees and squirrels that you can gallivant through serves no purpose beyond the first 3 or 4 times you might gallivant through it before getting bored and going back to killing marauding space pirates in your spaceship. It's just not what Frontier is looking to achieve with Elite Dangerous. I'm inclined to believe that if Frontier develops ship interiors then they will employ the same philosophy and the same principle underlying technology, what I like to call the phasing elevator technology. You can also see it employed in a fleet carrier interior to great effect to reach the owner's command area. The elevator never actually moves, its doors close, there's a short pause and then its doors open. The event is seamless, but when the cycle completes you're now facing in another direction and you're one level up, but your character never actually moved through the intervening space. It's essentially some clever smoke and mirrors used to cover a seamless instant teleport. When it comes to moving from the exterior to the interior, the phasing elevator becomes a phasing airlock / elevator depending on the size of the ship, but the essential underlying tech would, I'd imagine, be largely the same. Taking all this into account so far then, I'd be very surprised if FDev implemented ship interiors into the older generation ships. There's no two ways about it. Whatever you may feel about the new ships or how they're delivered and implemented, Elite Dangerous is evolving, and the new generation vessels in the game from the Python Mark II onwards are a central part of that evolution. They're faster and slicker and just functionally more capable enough to make them attractive to the player, but not so much more capable as to be completely game breaking. I have a growing museum-like garage full of very capable starships that have served me extremely well for over a decade, and absolutely no desire to use a single one of them. I suspect this is likely true for a large part of the existing player base as well, and if that is indeed the case, then it would make no sense for Frontier to go to the expense of implementing a feature like ship interiors on a ship that no one uses anymore. It's cold, but that's the harsh economic reality. The previous generation ships realistically took no reasonable account of how the player might enter and leave the ship's interior. Broadly speaking, their stairwells, ramps and doorways are purely cosmetic and offer an inference of functionality, but nothing more. At this point in the proceedings, the prosecution would like to cite the examples of the Imperial Cutter, whose stairwells were designed to be used by the giants of ancient mythology rather than slight blue-haired space princesses, and the Federal Corvette, whose underside, despite being several miles off the ground, has no hint of a stairway, ramp or usable deployed elevator whatsoever. When landed, you'll just see the hateful blue tunnel of despair and your own visions of lost dreams extending out before you. These are of course just two examples. Ever since the arrival of the Python Mark II, one of the first things we do here at the Burr Pit when we get our hands on a new ship is go and look at the entrance. With all the new ships, more care has certainly been taken when considering the entranceways, but they're not perfect, and that care is by no means a direct solid indication that ship interiors are definitely on their way. To illustrate what I'm talking about here, we're using 3 of the new ships: the Panther Clipper Mark II, the Corsair and the Cobra Mark V. There's 3 main criteria that need to be ticked for a ship interiors to be viable with the access to the game that we currently have. Those criteria are the stairs or ramps scaled and easily usable by a normal sized human avatar in the game? Is the doorway at the top of the rank correctly scaled for that same human avatar to fit through without clipping? And is there sufficient space inside the cockpit for a human to move around and, for example, easily make it on foot to and from the pilot's chair? For the most recently released behemoth of a ship, this is an easy set of questions to answer in the affirmative. The entrance ramp is easily accessible for its entire length, the doorway at the top is correctly scaled, and the ship features a brand new and quite copious bridge area that would easily be traversable by 4 of our human sized avatars. Tick tick tick. Next, let's look at the Corsair. As with all the new ships, the Corsair has a correctly scaled ramp, but the bottom 2 or 3 steps leading to the ramp are not usable unless you jump, meaning as things stand, when you're in a hangar where jumping is strictly forbidden by universal law, you can't climb the ramp. If you manage to traverse the steps on a planet's surface however, you will find the doorway to scale and giving the appearance at least of being eminently usable. The cockpit of the Corsair however, despite being a medium ship, is very distinctly a cockpit and not a bridge, and whilst an argument could be made that it is traversable via a narrow walkway, it doesn't appear to be easily so and is certainly a more confined space than our commanders are used to moving through. That's in direct and stark contrast to the Cobra Mark V, which, despite being a small ship, has a nice new spacious and easily traversable bridge. The stairwell is also easily accessible without jumping, but the doorway at the top, as things stand, would require Hobbit-like proportions or some sort of head phasing technology to pass through the bulkhead unhindered. This stuff can of course be changed, and you could even make a reasonable argument, looking at the Cobra doorway, that it is in fact not the actual doorway we're seeing in game right now and is a facade that gives the impression of a doorway, the real geometry being hidden underneath. A similarly reasonable argument could be made that in seeing that, I'm seeing what I would like to see and not what is in reality there. I touched on the subject of gameplay at the start of this piece, and in my mind that is a super important consideration to take in when looking at all of this. Simply adding ship interiors for the sake of immersion with no associated gameplay whatsoever is almost certainly not going to happen. Just exploring the inside of your ships, no matter how copious they might be, won't cut it as a worthwhile cost to extract from the game's development budget. At this point, the prosecution would like to call fleet carrier interiors to the dock as a witness. Whilst not directly pilotable, they are essentially massive spaceships with interiors. There are thousands of fleet carriers in colonised space. I would think it extremely likely that the interior of most of those carriers is visited hardly ever, if at all, on a week to week basis. The limited functionality that they do contain within their steely walls is usually handled better at a starport, and it gives me no pleasure whatsoever to say that the vast expanse of the rest of the fleet carrier interior space serves almost no purpose whatsoever. At the Burr Pit we use fleet carrier interiors mostly as social spaces for expeditions and outings, a purpose that they serve perfectly well, but they are used for that only rarely, and I would hazard that we're somewhat of an edge case to the edge cases when taken in context with the vast majority of all the other fleet carriers in the galaxy. What fleet carrier interiors specifically lack, however, is meaningful gameplay. Were ship interiors to be implemented with the same philosophy, they would, in my honest opinion, suffer largely the same fate. An interior to any ship would absolutely be a fun curiosity and a distraction for a couple or 3 visits, but once you've seen it a few times, what then does it bring? Frontier have, for the last couple of years now, been on a very obvious gig to revisit, revamp and refresh some of their core gameplay loops and systems. Supercruise, engineering and power play have all been worked over and vastly improved, and we're about to see the same refresh philosophy hit Squadrons when the Vanguards update arrives, currently scheduled for August. FDev has said publicly that they see Vanguards as a potential component in the onboarding process for newer players into Elite Dangerous, and whilst community, communication and shared objectives are undoubtedly an important part of bringing in and helping new players in an online game, playing with those new players is also extremely important. Elite's version of the difference in levels that MMORPGs can sometimes suffer with, aside from plain old time in the game, is engineering and access to ships and equipment etc. Elite has the potential to at least circumvent this level difference problem via the use of multi-crew gameplay, both present and telepresent. The current problem with both types of multi-crew, however, is that, as far as ship gameplay is concerned, there is nothing for the multi-crew component of the ship's complement to do unless the ship enters some kind of combat scenario. You could at least argue in a conflict zone or Hazres that a multi-crew player has something to do all the time and will see some rewards for their time spent. But when it comes to exploration, or in particular trading, colonisation, power play or passenger missions, aside from being a useful backup in the event of an interdiction, it equates to an awful lot of sitting about with little to no reward. Could it be then that multi-crew could be the next gameplay mechanism to receive some attention from FDev's current revamp and repair philosophy? And if it is, would it then perhaps make more sense for ship interiors to be included as part of that revamp further down the line? If Frontier implemented ship interiors, there is also the question of what method would be used to deliver that interior. We're no longer in the realm of guaranteed expansion pack based updates to the game like we were with Horizons and Odyssey. If you own a ship, it might not necessarily follow that you'll automatically get access to the interior as well if it became available. It could be that we'd see a blanket paid ship interiors expansion pack. In the world we live in now, and importantly in the galaxy that we inhabit now, it's also possible that we might see paid early access to a ship's interior in the same fashion we did with the exteriors on a ship by ship basis. Such is the live service ecosystem that Elite Dangerous finds itself in these days. I think what we're trying to decipher here is, are any visible hints at intent coming from Frontier, and in that regard, looking at all the new ships with my adult slightly more pragmatic head on, I would suggest the evidence is currently inconclusive at best. Ultimately, perhaps the question we should be asking ourselves, rather than ship interiors when, is ship interiors why, how and when. Do you think Frontier are leading us into a future with ship interiors? How do you see those interiors being delivered, and what functionality would you like to see from them? Let us know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to the channel so that you see all our videos and community posts, and if you'd like to support our work here at the Burr Pit, you can also join us on Patreon. Links to that and everything else we've talked about in this video you'll find linked below. That's it for now. Thanks very much for watching. We very much look forward to seeing you next time.